Hello everybody, we're here at the Rock Antenne Studios and with us today is Geoff Tate from Operation Mindcrime, and he's going to talk about his new record, Resurrection. Well, hi, good morning. Thanks for being here at this time of the day.
What time is it? Dawn, I think?
It looks like dawn now. How can I start this? It's funny because when I listened to your new record, Resurrection, I thought please correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that this must be the world record in doing intros for a record. I counted 4 before a longer musical segment would start in. True or false? They were necessary, right? Those things for a story.
I didn't really think of it as an intro, more as a short interlude, Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense when you play the records back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's part 2 of a trilogy.
It is.
And I pretty much figured that you have all 3 parts already done.
Yeah.
So when is the final part going to be released?
Next September.
So you're going to do this in a year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that something where you go like, gee, I wish we could do the whole thing already when you play live?
Oh, yeah.
You have to wait, though.
Well, I think every artist that makes a record wants to play his new work, in its entirety. It's what you want to do because you're very excited about your new material,
Yeah.
But the reality is that it takes time for an audience to assimilate your music and get used to it and understand it and for it to have an emotional impact on people, for them to make it their own. It takes a while. So it's not like most people are incredibly patient with new music, in a live atmosphere. Yeah. They want really to hear what they're familiar with.
Yeah.
It's really kind of all about them, and I accept that, So I'll play most of the songs from my catalog, and then I'll introduce a couple of new songs from each record,
So there's never going to be an Operation Mindcrime story where you just do this trilogy.
I'd like to, when the third album comes out, I'd like to do maybe a special run of shows. Maybe I'll film it and record it, for something special. But I'd like to be able to play the whole thing in its entirety. It's kind of a dream of mine,
Is Operation Mindcrime a project?
Yeah.
Which leads to the next question. We obviously we're going to talk about the record still, but what comes after Operation Mindcrime?
I don't know.
Project,
I never know what's going to happen next. Really, it's all a big roller coaster ride of amazement.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the story for all the people that?
A little bit. Primarily it's a mystery. And so it has some elements in it that you will discover upon repeated listenings. In a general sense, it's a song, an album or a story about a guy that invents a fantastic algorithm that he feels can radically change the way that people perceive reality. Yeah. There's a lot of talk these days about the perceptions of reality and how quantum physicists are looking at things completely different now in a way that we've never looked at things before. And it's kind of based on that idea of what we know and what we call reality is something that we learn when we grow up. As a child, you learn the definitions of everything. This is a microphone. This is a coffee cup. This is a hat, a dog, a cat, a chair, and of course in German it's different words, which I'm not going to attempt right now. But those definitions define what our reality is. And so the character in my story we call H, he invents a algorithm that he turns into a computer program that you can put into your laptop and instantly your reality will be changed. And so he envisions this as being something that can radically change the world. And he has these 3 partners that help him with the project, and there becomes a kind of a fracture in the relationship where they want to take this program and sell it and become fabulously rich. and he wants to give it to the world as a free program because he thinks it's going to change the face of the world. And so the three gang up on him and move to have him killed. And that's kind of a summary of the first album. The second album is after suffering this sort of near-death experience, the lead character, H, fights his way back into the living and tries to regroup and rebuild his life and kind of get control of what his dream is again. And that's the second album.
Apart from the personal story about H, how much of reading did you have to do in order to get all those technical issues that you
how much reading?
On? Yeah, I mean, like you cannot just go there and like, yeah, there's an algorithm and can change your. Did you have some reading to do about the technological stuff about everything?
Me personally, or
yeah, no, I mean, you wrote the story.
Yeah, just stuff I'm interested in.
All right, that's good.
Some people watch the game. I read about algorithms.
Okay, not too bad for a hobby though. As usual, I mean, you are probably one of the masters and champions when it comes to concept records in general. And as with other bands, I would always be afraid that if they go like, "Oh, we're going to do a concert record," I would always be afraid that the music is not going to be as important as the story would be. When it comes to you, I'm never really afraid. But how do you still match the music with the story? I mean, it's just so.
It's a hard thing to describe and to define, but there aren't any rules or playbook really. It's just kind of what feels right.
Yeah, but as for me, I would say, I would think that the story comes first, and then you put the music around it.
Yeah,
right?
you build the music around the story. But typically, that's the way I work. Yeah,
but that's just that just seems to be so
I tend
difficult.
to come up with like a premise, a short idea, and then with a little bit of thinking and putting it into an outline form, come up with a storyline, and then after the storyline's together, then you start looking at the characterization, who the characters are, and typically, like in a film, you would assign melodies or musical figures to these characters that would keep reappearing, throughout the piece at different times to sort of signal, okay, well, this character is telling from his point of view right now, and that musical figure will come up, and you'll hear it, and maybe you'll play that musical figure on a number of different instruments, or maybe you'll all keep it the same instrument. It just depends on what you're trying to do, People ask me all the time, well, where do you get these sounds, that you're coming up with? And that's something that I became fascinated with back in the mid-'80s when sampling first came out. Yeah. I started building a library of sampled sounds of things like, the drill that you use to take the lug nuts off your car when you're changing a flat tire, that makes a really unique sound. And so I sampled that at different speeds, and then I put that into my computer and changed the waveform and create a sound that you could use in a musical format, So you're taking non-musical sounds and making them musical,
It's amazing. I'd rather watch the game though. So I'm sorry, but I
touche.
It's been appreciated. I couldn't help but notice the saxophone on the record because I thought it stands out in a couple of songs. And I went through a list, like, who is this saxophone player they put in there? I found out it was you.
Yeah,
that's a nice one. I didn't really remember that you played saxophone so much.
Yeah, I've been playing saxophone for quite a while.
It's an instrument that doesn't necessarily come up in hard rock music, but here it fits. Is this also something where you go like, this is just the sound I'm looking for? It doesn't matter where it comes from or which instrument it creates.
Yeah, the saxophone, they say, is the instrument that's closest to the human voice. And I can see that. It's very expressive. You can do a lot of interesting things to it. It's not like you play a note and it's a note. You can bend that note up into pitch like you can with your voice, and it's a pleasing sound. I've used it for a number of different applications. On this album, I used it primarily as a standard saxophone sound, but in the past, I've run it through Marshall amps and distorted it. I put it into echoes and pitch shifters and all kinds of effects to make it interesting, you know, paint a picture.
Well, you know, coming to, or speaking of human sounds, I mean, just the list of musicians you acquired for this project is amazing. But was it like logistically really not just difficult to get all those
it really was. Yeah.
How, I mean, just generally asking, why do you need 3 different drummers?
You don't need 3 different drummers, but why not? You know?
No.
They play differently. They add different things, different nuances to the music. You know, Simon Wright, for example, was just this master groove player. And if you need a song to just have this steady groove to it, you know, I don't know anybody better. You know, he just has that thing that he does, you know. Brian Tichy is like I call him the Albert Einstein of drums, because he's like a mathematician, you know. He knows every little time signature that he's playing, and he can tell it to you and tell you, you know, how many beats it takes to get to the end or to the beginning, or, you know, he's like thinks in numbers, you know. And you like that for certain songs that have, you know, many time changes and things like that. And Scott Mercado is more of a ethereal player. He can play very delicately, and he can really hit at the same time, you know. So he's kind of a different player altogether, you know. And he plays other instruments as well.
I feel so sad for the guy you take on tour with, who's going to be the drummer for all the songs.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff to remember, you know.
But you just, you know, when those guys came into the studio, I mean, I just imagine you go like, why don't you do this song, and the others do this?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And they never complained?
No. I kind of tried to match their style, you know, with what I wanted to kind of achieve with the music, you know. So I'd take a piece of music and I'd assign it to this guy, you know, okay, can you play this part? And that seemed to work fine, you know.
And with the singers as well, I guess.
Yeah,
I had a
singers
couple
too.
of them here.
Yeah, I've got Mark Daly, who's here today with me, great singer, young Irish lad, sang on the record, and Blaze Bailey and Ripper Owens sang on the record as well.
Yeah. So it's typically just, you know, Geoff Tate calls and everybody comes. Was there someone you didn't get? Or you go like, oh, I wish I had this guy.
Oh, there's lots of people I'd love to collaborate with. You know, I'm a collaborator. I like to work with people. You know? And I really love when people give me their interpretation of my music. You know, I'll give them a piece, and I always leave it open for their interpretation. Well, what can you do with this? You know, and then they'll give me their ideas on, you know, how they're going to do it, and they'll, of course, always go beyond my expectations. People just, that's what they do, you know. They hear a piece of music, and we all hear it differently. You know. And so, like, even Brian Tichy counting, you can count a piece in a different way. You know, you can count it in a, I don't know how people do this, but they do. They count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Well, he can count it in a double time, which gets you to the same point, but you're counting and accenting in different beats. Does that make sense? Rewind.
I guess it does, though. All right. Yeah, this is, as I said before, it's kind of hard for us to wait for the third part, you know.
Me too.
Do you actually have more going with the story by itself? Because I can imagine that, you know, movie companies are interested, you know, like a book could be written, all of this stuff. Or do you just think straightly musically?
I strictly think in music terms, yeah. But we are putting out a comic book for this trilogy. And if you see the artwork that's associated with the CDs, you'll see that it's kind of comic book in form. And on the release of the third one, we're going to release the comic book at that time. So if people still can't figure out the story, they'll be able to read the comic book and figure out more of what's happening, you know.
Now, apart from all the music stuff that you do, I know that you have one hobby, which is, I don't know if it's still a hobby or if it's already a profession, but you are an expert on wines, aren't you?
Well, I'm not an expert.
Ah, come on, don't underestimate
I
yourself.
still have a lot more research that I need to carry out. Yeah.
But you gonna have a little wine party, I think next week or even this week, I guess, at the end of this weekend.
The 23rd or 4th, 24th? Yeah, 24th in Eichstätt.
How come you found this place?
My wife is German, and her family is from not south of Freiburg, but 15 kilometers outside of Freiburg. It's a little farming town called Eichstätten, and that's where her family's from. And so some of her family members are incredible winemakers from generations of winemakers back, and they make Aranzania wine, and it's fantastic. It's great wine, yeah, absolutely. Made in the famous, part of the Kaiserstuhl, area. Yeah. It's fantastic.
So how much of wine do you know, or what's your part in this one?
Well, I'll tell you, I made my first wine when I was 14 years old, because I was a Boy Scout, and you could get a merit badge. Remember those sashes the Boy Scouts used to wear with all the different badges on?
Here in Germany, we only know them from movies because we don't have this Boy Scout movement.
I thought it was worldwide. Okay, maybe not. Anyway, you could earn a merit badge if you created a beverage or a food product,
And you made wine.
And I made wine because I found a book in my grandmother's library about how to make wine from, I don't know what the German word is for it, but in English it's called a dandelion. And it's
Löwenzahn. Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Yellow flower, grows in the grass.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a folk wine. And so I made my first wine out of that. And then became fascinated with the chemistry aspect of it, and all the different sort of source materials you could make wine from. Yeah. I thought it was pretty interesting stuff.
How did it taste?
Horrible. But I got the merit badge.
That's good. When I first heard the word or read the word dandelion, I read it dandelion. Because I didn't know how to pronounce it.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to somebody, there's a dandelion. They laughed at me like, well, if it was crazy. So dandelion, that's good.
Well, children can be cruel.
I know. Yeah. But it wasn't even children, it was grown-ups. Well,
anyway, so I started when I was 14 making wine, and then just kind of developed an interest as I grew up and started traveling, being a musician, and going to these fantastic places around the world that had wine culture, Germany's got a fantastic wine culture, and France, of course, and Spain, and Italy, and now America has a fantastic wine industry. Yeah. So I just started leaning in that direction, and finding out more about it, and developing my palate, and trying different wines, and collecting different wines, and so here I am.
Not too bad.
Yeah, still don't know everything about it though.
Well, you can't know everything.
I don't think you can ever know everything about anything, but true. You can get a pretty good idea.
Now, I gotta ask you this. Obviously, when you talk about Operation Mindcrime and about the project you have, and still, if you listen to the music, it reminds automatically of your old band, former band, and with the name of the project, I think you don't really, separate yourself from this completely as well, intentionally. So, what do you think about the whole situation that you're in right now? I mean,
well, I can't really separate myself from it because it's my life.
It's your stuff, exactly. Yeah. But then others have the name and tour with it, So
yeah, I know. That's kind of one of those tawdry little business things that you have to deal with in your life, But that's okay. We've settled, and we've all gone on our different directions, and I'm very happy. And really, honestly, not a lot has changed in my life. I still get up in the morning, I go into the studio, write music, create records, go out on the road, play shows, tour around the world, drink wine and beer, and and appear on radio stations and things like that. Nothing's really changed except the people that I play music with. And that's kind of fun because I get to work with a lot of different people now, and a lot of people that I perhaps couldn't have worked with in the past. Having kind of being locked into a band kind of keeps you working with the same people over and over and over again, And in this situation, I'm free to work with anyone,
Final question, I guess. When can we expect to see Operation Mindcrime live over here?
December we start touring.
Nice.
Yeah.
throughout Germany,
Yeah,
throughout
not too
Europe?
far. Yeah, we started in Europe and going to be over here for a couple months. I think it's all through December. We take a couple days off for Christmas and then continue on until my birthday in January. It's the last show, and then I think we take off to South America after that.
All right. And do you think you're going to be back for some summer festivals next summer?
I hope so. I love the festivals. Yeah.
I think everybody does.
I love just going on and not knowing if any of the gear will work and, you know, how anything sounds or, you know, if the microphone's even on. I love that, you know. It's like, it's exciting.
Well, thanks very much for being here. And
my pleasure.
Thanks for this interesting talk about algorithms and wine.
Goes well together.
Rockantenne, der beste Rock nonstop.